Start the stream up. Well, the song's done. I can turn on the on-air. That way, go through the intro. "44 seconds. Welcome to KTAM Weekly News. I'm your host, Healing Cross. Just heads up to anybody who doesn't already know, you can check out the KTAM Weekly News live on twitch.tv/Yalen, where you can look at my ugly mug and get updates on my stream and KTAM Radio. Our first story, an update to a story we covered a couple weeks ago. Mike Lulbeck, the Code Avarice co-owner and developer who threatened to kill Gabe Newell, the CEO of Valve, on Twitter, who then apologized and resigned from his position in the company, is, well, back. After his departure, he found it difficult to find other work and ultimately couldn't commit to his resignation. Blizzard's expansion to WoW, Warlords of Draenor, definitely did not go without a hitch. A combination of attacks, including DDoS, caused the World of Warcraft servers to have massive problems on launch day and several days after. The World of Warcraft subreddit was also shut down for several days due to these events. The moderator, Nightsmoke, chose to shut down the Reddit in protest of the server issues. Since then, the Reddit has been put back up but under new leadership, who have made it clear that what Nightsmoke did was a very big mistake. Due to all the issues with Warlords of Draenor, Blizzard has decided to give all players with active accounts a 5-day sub-extension. That may not seem like a whole lot to an individual, but it translates into a $2.50 American value per person and approximately the cost of $25 million to Blizzard, which now has over 10 million subscribers. The self-described world's dumbest game, Goat Simulator, is releasing its new MMO expansion. It very clearly pulls a lot of inspiration from World of Warcraft, so much so that they have publicly asked Blizzard to not sue them. You can pick up the new expansion today. Lifetime bans may be in the future for many WildStar players as Carbine cracks down on gold exploiters. Players who contacted customer service and asked to have the exploited gold removed from their account may be able to dodge the ban bullet. For a game that is already having trouble, losing players isn't something they can afford, especially considering they've had to reduce their raid content from 40 people to 20 people due to a lack of players. They intend on rescaling the content, but not nerfing it. It seems every week I have news about WildStar doing poorly. I feel bad for people who stuck around. I hope Carbine finds a way to fix things. Ubisoft has announced it will be changing its policies in how it deals with the public and game critics. Ubisoft is being a massive criticism after the bug-ridden release of Assassin's Creed Unity, as well as the review embargo that prevented reviews from being released until 12 hours after the game launched. Ubisoft is looking into the possibility of open betas for some of their future games that have even started a live update blog dedicated to informing the fans on bug fixes. PlayStation gaming executive Sean Layden is another voice adding to the quickly growing list of video game bigwigs publicly denouncing harassment in gaming. He also added that Sony is one of the best examples for successful women in the gaming industry, pointing out Shannon Studstill, who runs the God of War development in Santa Monica, and Connie Booth, who is the head of San Mateo. This follows on Mike Morheim, the president of Blizzard Entertainment, stating that there's a small group of people doing awful things, and they are tarnishing the reputation of gamers in the gaming industry as a whole. Fairy Tale Distillery, an independent studio who has recently had their project Das Tal greenlit on Steam, has recently released statements critical of the greenlight procedure. The main issue being a lack of transparency of the greenlight process and the seemingly arbitrary style that games are greenlit. Though he indicated being in the top 100 ranked games on greenlight helps a lot in having your game accepted in Steam, it by no means guarantees it, as many games that have been in those rankings for a long time have not been accepted, while many with very little rankings at all have managed to get through the process. Oh, got a little mixed up there. In a new study published in the National Academy of Science, it turns out people who play fast-paced action games like Call of Duty have a greater capacity for learning than someone who plays slower-paced games like The Sims. The study found that the action games train the brain to make predictions faster and more precise. For more details on the study or article, it is linked as always on the KTAM radio forums on the heading Show Times and then the weekly news, and just find the current date. AMD chief gaming scientist Richard Huddy has created a potential PR nightmare for Microsoft. While giving a presentation at the PDX LAN event, he stated that DirectX 12 will not work on Windows 7. Since then, both AMD and Microsoft have denounced the statement, making it clear he is in no position to know anything about DirectX 12 or how it will work on Windows 7, and as AMD stated, he misspoke. Microsoft ensures that DirectX 12 will work fine on Windows 7, and there's no need to upgrade to 8, or the upcoming 10, in order to get DirectX 12 to work. This is definitely something we will be following in the future. We're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, we're going to be talking, obviously, once again, gender equality, because it seems like that's still what's going on. There we go.
So he quit his company and then he came right back. What a douche.
Totally thought it was going to happen.
The refusing to call Windows 9 yet. The refuse to be called Windows 9. Oh, wonder what happened to GameSpot.
DDoS.
It had a squat.
It went on strike.
It's probably being DOSed.
Were they the ones that did the Pokemon thing? No, it's IGN.
IGN, but that's still hilarious.
That is.
What did it do?
Too much water!
Yeah, that was fucking bad. That sounds good, but I went upstairs to Burgundy. She's doing dishes, and I'm like, dear, too much water.
I still don't know what you're talking about. We need a PS4.
Know those drinks you drink?
Water.
Yeah, too much water. Know those drinks you like to drink?
Mm-hmm.
Too much water.
Stop being a wanker.
You know that's gonna be like a massive meme for like a long time, that community.
Yeah. Hashtag too much water.
Yeah.
There is actually a hashtag for it already.
Is there? I'm not surprised.
Yeah. It's probably trending.
I should have actually done that just as a story. In Pokemon news, based on IGN, hashtag too much water. And then just left it at that.
Just end your show with it.
Yeah, there we go. And all the Pokemon fans always remember, hashtag too much water. Such a stupid thing, too.
I don't get it.
How about pound too much water? Or number sign too much water?
The newest Pokemon is essentially a water-based one, and IGN basically gave the whole game good reviews except for there's too much water.
But if it's a water-based
Well,
game,
the main team in one half of it's called Team Aqua, and they use water-based Pokemon because they're called Team fucking Aqua.
Did you look in your wallet?
No.
Yelling grows
So what's
money.
your theme song, Barbie Girl?
Sweet, I have condoms. Must mean
You
I
have
get that
condoms
hooker.
in your wallet? That's a really bad place to keep them.
That's where Burgundy put them.
Yeah, one of us wants to have a baby.
Oh, going live right
Did you
away.
poke holes in them first?
Welcome back. On our first topic of discussion, as I scroll down here, Sweden is currently looking into adding labels or ratings onto their games to identify games that represent gender equality and possibly gender inequality. The Swedish Game Trade Organization, with a name I won't even attempt to say, as I'll butcher it very badly, received a grant for approximately 37,000 American dollars to look into how games made in Sweden portray female characters and gender issues. Now, before we get to discussing this, I would like to point out that if an organization gives you money to study a theory, you're going to go into your study biased, looking for evidence to confirm the theory. A quote from Anton Ablin, the project manager for the study, stated, "Of course, games can be about fantasy, but they can be so much more than this. They can also be a form of cultural expression reflecting society or society we are hoping for. Games can help us to create more diverse workplaces and can even change the way we think about things." End quote. Though I don't disagree with him at all, to me that is a pretty obvious thing to most gamers. Where I take issue is stifling creativity for the sake of someone else's narrative. If people like Anton want more games with that form of narrative, then people like him need to go out there and make games with that narrative. I can understand putting more onus on the big game studios, as usually not one person's creative vision publishing or pushing the narrative, so there's far more room for responsible social storytelling. But small companies tend to be the ones attacked more often, and that's not right. There's no need for a push for equality in storytelling. But I agree, there does need to be assurances that the gaming companies themselves are being equal. So let's open this one up for some discussion.
So they're creating a rating system based on equality, gender equality to be exact. I've got that right?
Yes. So the premise of the article was that they haven't decided exactly how they're going to proceed with this. They're either going to put a special certification for games that do meet gender equality standards to put them above other games, or they're actually going to create like a PEGI system, like the British use for rating their games, or ESRB rating, whatever. On this game is a, say, a 1 out of 10 scale, 5 being, or whatever, like a 1 out of 10 scale potential, and your game can be rated between that scale of how how gender responsible it is.
well,
So basically, they're going to put a redundancy on a redundancy on top of a redundancy, wrapped up in a redundancy, when all you really have to do is read the base rating on the package and go, oh, hey, this may not be socially appropriate.
That's basically what they're doing, or talking about doing.
But if people, it's like you said, if people want, you know, a game of a certain type, go and make the game. Don't try and force other people who are not interested in making that kind of game into making the kind of game you want.
I disagree. There are people out there who are not going to make games, who cannot make games. Okay, I want a game that has titties and beer, but I don't know how to program. I don't know how to create a game. Am I going to go out and create a game? No. I'm going to say, here's my money. Give me what I want.
Okay, now you're becoming an employer though. So that's the difference, right? Like, we're talking people that, like Rockstar. Rockstar makes a particular type of game. And this sounds a lot like, hey, Rockstar, you can't make a Grand Theft Auto game the way that you've been making it traditionally anymore because of XYZ, because we want to see more of ABC. And I don't think that's right.
I think it's because of Double Y.
I just think that if there's enough people out there who want a type of game, someone will make it. You stop telling us to go out and make the game. We just continue saying that we have an interest in it and someone will make it for us. Take our money, we will buy it as a consumer. Not as an employer, but as a consumer, we control what we can have. If we don't like something, then we won't put the money into it. But on the same hand, is it fair for Sweden to say, hey, this game has gender equality? No, I agree with Kevin. Read the back of the freaking label. Read what it's about. Every game is about some sort of inequality.
Well, I think the bigger issue comes down to is how do you define gender equality? Like, how do you make a scale that isn't subjective? What? Okay, a scale on 1 to 10, there's no females, period, in the game. Because obviously it's going to target females. So if it's an all-female gaming, guarantee they're not going to label it as gender inequality. Because it's an all-girl game. They're not going to do that. They're only going to do that if it's an all-male game. Because we know how society works. So, okay, so you're a 1 because you have no women in your game, period. Okay, you have a woman, but she's a victim. Okay, maybe you get a 2. Yeah. Then you have a game like Bayonetta. But the problem is that Bayonetta spends a lot of her time beating on men. So how is that gender equality? Men, again, are just being used as landscape to be butchered, as Nia Sarkeesian failed to point out in her own trope. Men as wallpaper. It's just, you're now trying to define a system based on social values. That's where I think this is going to have trouble. I don't have an issue necessarily of maybe giving a certificate to a company that says, "Hey, you've gone above and beyond making a socially acceptable game." I don't have a problem with that. I would have a problem with the game being rated lower because it doesn't have that equality.
Well, my point. I'm not in favor of the Swedes doing this for one reason. We play games as a form of escapism in fantasy settings that plays to the tropes that we enjoy. It's not about social equality, it's about having enjoyment in that moment. If a game caters to a certain demographic, fine. If you don't like that game, don't play it. It's really very simple. It's like Blood Rain. Okay, let's talk about Blood Rain. It's, that title's 10 years old. Great title. Enjoyed it. Played the hell out of it. I thought it was pretty awesome. Freaking female double blade wielding ass kicking vampire chick, or damn pure, that goes around, sucking blood and just, the morphing scene, the morphing moves where, I didn't find anything uh socially or morally wrong because I treated it as a fantasy title. They gave me a situation. Here's a female, she's a vampire, she's out to kill her father who, turned her, blah blah blah, yakety, or raped her mother, blah blah blah, yakety smackety. And you know, you go, it spawned two spin-offs, Blood Rain and Blood Rain 2. I played both of them. Awesome games, but that's all it was to me. It was a game. It signified nothing. It was a, hey, here's a challenge. I'm going to conquer this challenge, then I'm going to move on to the next game. Why everybody suddenly in this day and age getting their knickers in the twist, whether a game portrays something, is completely asinine and stupid. Sorry, I'm not trying to step on anybody's toes on here, but you play a game for enjoyment and or relaxation and or to escape the crap of reality. Trying to drag reality and morality into any genre of game is pointless. Sure, you can have certain various levels, very small levels that say, okay, well, here's a semi-realistic scenario set in this town. Okay, but after that point, it's all about the fantasy. The fantasy of being a pimp on the street corner, the fantasy of being a a mob don, the fantasy of being a star, the universe's greatest star pilot, the fantasy of being the hero with the sword who rescues the damsel, the fantasy of being a butt kicking Xena style female warrior who goes out and slaughters evil. That's the point of games, to have that enjoyment, to escape from reality. And having the Swedes say, "Oh, we're going to create a new rating system that lists this crap," clearly want to drag reality and the crap of humanity into our enjoyment.
It's a first world problem. Really, if we're not bitching, whining, moaning, and complaining about this, we're going to find something else to whine, bitch, moan, and complain about.
Yeah, I actually have to completely agree with you, Kevin. Um, I think a social commentary is a great place for games to be, but all games don't have to involve social commentary. I don't think it needs to be a requirement. That just seems to be what needs to happen. Like I don't get the need, because all movies don't have social commentary. Why do all games? What? Because 500 million people and it's growing very quickly. Play video games. Somehow we need to add social commentary to every single one. What's the social comedy for Farmville, or Flappy Birds, or whatever? Like there's so many games out there for so many different people, and several games do have fantastic social commentary. But why aren't these games being recognized already? Now, primarily, the Swedish thing will affect companies like Mojang, because they're based in Sweden, Dice as well, and there's another company I can't remember what it was off the top of my head. Um, and obviously, the website's down, so I can't even go check again what they listed as. But there's another big company that's also based out of Sweden. And those are the games primarily going to be affected, but could also affect games that are being sold in Sweden. So that could, what, if a game doesn't meet a certain gender equality rating, they can't be sold in Sweden? What, we're going to have another China on our hands? And in India and stuff like that, in which, sorry, you can't have these games enter our country, which I guess is the right of the country, but again, you're creating a system that seems very arbitrary. You get some person on there who has a burr up their ass. They're going to define gender equality far different than somebody like me. So I can recognize true gender inequality. I can tell when somebody's being mistreated because of their gender, both male and female. Shocker, men get mistreated because they're gender too. Yeah, I know. Weird, huh? But but other people, there's a lot of people who can't seem to understand that. Who can't seem to understand. Hell, I spent 10 minutes with my kid's social worker today explaining Gamergate to her because she had no freaking idea. And when it was all said and done, she's like, "That just sounds really silly. They're video games." And it couldn't be put better ever in my life. That something as simple as video games gains so much just crap for no other reason than people want to pump up their personal egos and, in a lot of ways, their personal pocket banks. It's kind of weird how Gamergate's kind of disappeared. How this article, under normal circumstances, would have had the hashtag Gamergate all over it. But now nobody's talking about Gamergate. Gamergate's now a no-no word. Even anti-Gamergate's a no-no word. People want to talk about the individual issues, which I think is fantastic. Talk about the issues. And that's why I think Gamergate is dead. Because nobody wants to talk about it anymore. The Gamergate movement itself is done. People are actually starting
Well,
to
it's still getting hundreds and
on Twitter.
thousands of tweets.
Yeah,
Well, that's
the
where
problem
it's
is
always been. It's always been on Twitter.
it hasn't always been on Twitter. It's extended far beyond Twitter for quite some time.
Okay, but its basic skeletal structure is Twitter. I mean, it started on Twitter. It's maintained itself on Twitter. The only thing that isn't being talked about is the mainstream media. They've stopped because they've realized they can't win with the narrative that they want to use.
Yeah, which I think is fantastic. Now the now the media is actually talking about the legitimate issues and not talking about everything else. Yeah, a lot of the game companies have made a lot of steps to change their policies. Obviously, only time will tell how they actually adhere to those policies, but we have to give them time. We honestly do. You can't just say that's not good enough. We want to see you take a time machine and change everything. So I think that's where the gamer media has acknowledged as well. There's a lot more stories coming out about companies like Ubisoft abusing the review system for their own means. So this type of stuff is coming out there. So it's a time will tell thing. I think there's still a decent conversation about equality for women within certain aspects of gaming. I just don't personally believe individual games is where it needs to be talked about. I don't think there is a narrative there that needs to be talked about. If you want a game that has a strong female protagonist, make it. Other companies are doing it. Bayonetta, Lara Croft. Like, those are just two big games that have been out in the last year. And Lara Croft has even more titles coming out. So it's a strong female protagonist now that came from a very sexist background that is now being turned into something that has a strong female presence. It's out there if people actually care to open their eyes. It's just obviously more convenient to not open them to certain people.
Yes, but then you're opening the doorway for the whole another fight. For my one Lara Croft game,
No,
how
there's now
many
4.
okay, so to my 4 Lara Croft games, how many games do you have where the sole protagonist is a man? Let's not even talk the Gamergate sexist conversation. I rescind that last comment. Let's move on.
Well, the problem is that the video games are being written by the people who are writing them, and a lot of these writers are male. There just isn't. It's not that women aren't getting the opportunities. At least that's what these big companies are saying. Is that there just aren't enough women to take on these responsibilities. So if the majority of your story writers are male, yeah, it makes perfect sense that a lot of your storytellers or stories be written at a male perspective. You also have to take into consideration, like God of War is a fantastic example. A lot of characters, especially in the action games, want a very imposing figure. And I'm sorry to say, if you make a female character that's very imposing, you're basically emasculating a woman because she's going to have to be some big bodybuilder chick who no longer looks like a woman, but rather looks like a man with long hair. That's the problem. Where you're going to get the strong female is when you're dealing with more Leith type of characters. So you're going to have women that accentuate the female strengths, and that is typically tends to be agility and stuff like that. And there are lots of games that do come out that do accentuate that. There's also a lot more games coming out that bring out more diversity and choice. Like Ubisoft got butchered pretty hard because their online multiplayer doesn't have a female assassin. Well, I'm sorry. Assassin's Creed has spent many years establishing that the assassins and the assassin cult is based on very Middle Eastern values, and that value is that only men are assassins. Why are they going to change it now? Why do they need to change it now? I don't get it.
Why don't these feminists that want all this stuff? Why don't they go over to the Middle East and demand that women are allowed to drive and stuff like that? I mean, why are they even picking on video games? And there's so many other far more serious issues and abuses where women who are being legitimate put down or are being legitimately abused. Why aren't these feminists fighting and arguing and attacking those people? I mean, why is it video games? I mean, is it that easy of a target? I mean, do they have nothing better to do?
I can't remember the exact term. I heard it today, and I wish I could remember it now. It's sideline something or whatever. The premise behind the statement was that it is easy to just jump on Twitter and take on a cause because you send a tweet and you feel good about yourself because you got yourself involved in making a change when really you sent out a tweet and did literally nothing. And that's the problem. It's that type of people. It's easy feminism. It's easy socialism. It's easy whatever. And
It's armchair participation.
yeah, exactly. It's armchair. That might be it. It's armchair something. But it basically boils down to is, yeah, there are some far
Activism.
there. Thank you very much. Between the two of you, we got armchair activism. It's basically It's really easy to just sit in our chair and try to see we're going to make a difference. Very few people actually do. Um, and that's the big problem. And that's where a lot of people have actually went out of their way to make a change. Look at the people who started the ALS Ice Bucket Challenge. I watched a TED talk of hers today, and she even said, she's like, it was something that we didn't understand. We didn't realize it wasn't being dealt with until their kid got it. And then they made it as a family goal to collect money for it. And something that arguably really shouldn't be getting this money, because there are far bigger problems out there that that money could go for, got a ton of money, is because people got involved. And it's different but the same in this regard, is there's lots of big problems out there that really should be dealt with, but people seem to latch onto these things that are closer to home, or in some cases easy to jump on the bandwagon, which is what the ALS Ice Bucket Challenge was. That was something that a lot of people did, not because of ALS, but because it stroked their ego, which is why the people who started was fantastic.
Right, and the ALS thing was also very guilt, and it's really driven by guilt. It's because it's a challenge. It's I did it, now you have to do it because I'm challenging you. And I think some people kind of felt obligated because at that point, because it's made public, it's put on YouTube or wherever, and now all of a sudden it's okay. Well, if I don't do this, then people are going to look at me, and they're going to look at me in a very bad way. And I don't think that's I don't think you should be guilting people into that kind of an activity either.
Yeah, I agree. Like,
Nice use of high school peer pressure.
yeah.
Oh, exactly, absolutely.
And it's just kind of like picking and choosing your battles. Like, there's certain charities that personally I look at and kind of go, really? You're collecting money for that versus something else, like anti-bullying campaigns. Why are we collecting money for this? Anti-suicide campaigns. Like, these are things I think are, yeah, deserve to be dealt with, obviously. But in some cases, they're a matter of choice. And they can be dealt with without throwing money at. They're things that money's not going to solve. The only way you're going to solve these issues is by dealing with the families and having the families better treat their members and actually like be an actual family like there used to be back in the day. I'd rather throw my money at something far more important that is going to do something, even ALS, cancer, you name it. Like, there's tons of things out there that deserve to have money thrown at to solve the problem, because it affects millions upon millions of people and actually kills them. Whereas other things are just social issues. And why are we throwing money at social issues that don't need to have money thrown at them? But yet people make these big deals. Like, I get it, the anti-bullying stuff. I understand people don't like bullying. I was bullied as a kid. Heck, anybody looking at my stream will realize I'm a fat man. I've always been a fat man, which automatically means I've always been bullied. But I dealt with it. I've also gone through suicide. I've tried to commit suicide. I dealt with it. It's not easy. It requires people around you to make things better. Money was not going to solve any of my problems, both in weight or in my depression.
The problem with suicide prevention is there's very little you can do to actually prevent it from a third party standpoint, and I think that's probably what you're trying to get at, because first off, the only people that are going to should notice that you have a problem, that you might have a little bit of help, are those people closest to you. And if they are so self-absorbed that they are not seeing that you are making an effort for either obvious cries for help, or at the very least struggling in some way, well, some third party organization sure as hell ain't going to figure that out either. And the best that they can do is a suicide helpline, which is fabulous. I mean, I think that should have support, but you can't get much past that, because you know are you actually going to go see a psychologist? Maybe yes, no. Can you afford to see a psychologist? Probably not. Even in Canada, you're only going to get so much free help before you're going to start
And the
paying
wait
for it.
list is ridiculous.
Right, and you can't throw money at a waiting list because, well, you can only deal with so many. I mean, there's only so many psychologists that are, out of school, I guess you could say. So there's so many issues that kind of go along with it, and I think in some cases, um, especially since the ALS challenge came out, I think there's a lot of these other smaller organizations that are seeing the ALS challenge as a kind of a means for them to say, hey, you know what? If they can be successful in doing this, I think I can be successful at raising this money too. But honestly, where's it all going? And I hate to see good money going down a bad way. I think we definitely need to raise awareness and stuff. Now, all of my comments, of course, exclude military. I think the military, by just by the nature of it, I think when you come home from multiple tours of service and stuff, I think it should be mandatory that you have to seek counseling and stuff like that because everybody that I've talked to says consistently that that transition from out in the field to the civilian life is a very, very, very difficult one, and I think they do need more help, and I don't mind supporting that, but I think just for your layman, everyday person, for like suicide prevention, I don't think you're really helping anyone. You're helping an organization make money, but I don't think you're going to prevent that. For how much money you might raise, I don't think you're going to prevent that many suicides. Just as an example.
Well, the biggest problem with suicide is by like if the people, like you said, the people closest around you don't realize that you have those thoughts, then there no amount of money is going to stop you from trying. And when you fail to succeed, or if you fail to succeed, some people do succeed, and then I guess you could say problem solved in regards to them solving the problem that they felt they needed to solve. But you can't throw money at that. Once the person's dead, there's no money to be thrown at. You can maybe help the family deal with the grieving process, but in all honesty, the family is kind of responsible too for not noticing that there's at least something wrong, for not taking the steps necessary to kind of go, hey, let's do something. Like, my family was terrible when I was dealing with my process as a whole, but there was a few members of my family who noticed something was wrong with me. Tried to help in ways they didn't know how bad it was. I made the attempt. I failed. Still, nobody even realized I made the attempt when I did. But my family still realized, those members of my family still realized that, hey, there's something wrong, and they helped me get through it. And my friends. And that's what, those people deserve money. Give those people money. They actually helped, they literally pulled me out of hell and solved my problem. Give those people money, by all means.
I think a lot of that, though, is our social dynamics in our modern day culture. I mean, family lives further apart than it ever has before. Family gatherings are rare, if at all. We don't even do community events anymore. I mean, I remember growing up, as a kid, at least once a month for sure, there'd be a youth dance or something like that. But for the most part, I mean, churches always had youth nights where all the kids could go and play. You play games. There's like intramurals or whatever at school. There's all of these activities that you could do to socialize with other people, get to know other people, and interact with other people in safe environments. And none of those things exist anymore. We're very disconnected, and social media, as much as it, I think, connects people in superficial ways, I don't think it does anything to connect people, in meaningful ways at the end of the day.
Yeah, I totally agree. I'm going to do some quick pimping and then then we'll take a quick commercial break. Since we're talking about charities, I am doing a charity fundraiser for something called the Hair Massacre. They've been around for 10 years now, and they do, basically you actually donate your hair for wigs and dolls for people who have lost their hair due to disease, obviously typically cancer and chemotherapy. We're going to be starting the fundraiser, I think, starting probably around December, sometime in December. All proceeds donated will go to the Hair Massacre. And we're going to set up a tiered system. So no matter what, I'm getting my hair cut off, and we're donating that to them. But for for based on how much we actually get for donations, we will go above and beyond what I will lose, from shaving my head bald to cutting off my entire beard and actually shaving my entire face to unfortunately going and getting my body wax if we make enough money type of idea. All caught on camera for everybody who wants to look at the fat man get waxed. And that's right through KTAM. I'm gonna be streaming regularly. We're gonna be talking on KTAM Radio. We're still trying to get more details from them for what I want to get their logo on my stream and on KTAM and find out what kind of relationship we can form in that regards. But all donations do not come to us first. You can donate to us, and then we'll obviously route the proceeds to them. But we will have a direct link to them that I will be able to actually check out and see what the number is at. So you don't have to worry about giving us the money and having us give the check to them. It will go straight to them, no middleman. So you don't have to question if we're actually being honest people and holding the money. It'll go straight to them. More details in the future, but we're going to take a quick commercial break, and when we get back, we're going to be talking about more collection campaigns. And we're out.
You can have my money to not shave your beard.
Yeah, start a counter campaign.
That'd be kind of interesting. Still goes to the same charity.
Yeah, exactly. How do you like my little Hydra poke?
Yeah, I did notice that they're taking the donations directly themselves.
Yeah, I brought the whole suicide thing because that's what they're supporting.
Still, oh no, I mean, I don't begrudge anyone for supporting that. I mean,
No.
I just think you definitely need to be doing your due diligence. You really need to know where it's going and who's it actually benefiting. But, for myself, I would much rather donate. Like everything I do charity wise is to local organizations. I'm not a big fan of national organizations because every little bit of research I've ever done, um, when it comes to the national organizations, tells me that there's so much um, money that is used for administration costs and funneling the money through different places and stuff like that. I just don't trust them. Where if it's a local people, I know where it's going, I know who it's benefiting, and I can actually physically see what the effects are. Where on a national thing, I really can't. I know kids are getting food. I know kids are getting whatever they need locally, and
Apparently
I like that.
Apparently it picked quick commercials. We're going back live here right away.
But I don't know. I wouldn't pick on them because they're doing a thing for suicide. I think it's good for them.
I'm not technically picking on them, but okay, we're going live. Welcome back, and holy crap, Kevin wrote a essay that I will not be reading anytime soon, it looks like.
Just read it. Just read it sight unseen.
Okay,
I do it. It's usually good commentary.
Okay, I'm going to read this. This is probably talking about our last topic, so. This is...
Read it.
Sure, go ahead.
Okay, because I can read and talk at the same time. So Kevin 6 says, honestly, the feminists don't want a video game with equality. Imagine a shooter where the heroine seduces her victims with teases and baby seal eyes into a false sense of security, then shoots them in the face. Then calls her BFF and makes plans to rob the next door neighbor because his dog pooped on her lawn. Then, when the crap hits the fan, press A to have her break down into sobs and tears. Then execute a combo of lying and flirtation to position the heroine into a more advantageous moment to deliver the coup de grace on the boss. Then lying to the police with a victim dialogue when they arrive. And find the uber evil boss dead with a 9-inch stiletto heel embedded between his eyes. No. Feminists don't want a game with true equality because it would expose behaviors that women often exhibit in real life. What they want is a generic toon bot with no gender preference that goes out and slaughters the enemy with no sense of guilt or remorse. What they want is a Terminator Skelebot.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
Kevin, we should have a conversation later.
Pro or against what he wrote.
Yeah, Burgundy wants one that comes with a vibration feature.
Yeah. Okay, so on to our next topic while Burgundy feigns insult.
I know where you live.
Yeah, and I know your true feelings on it, so don't feign your distaste. Okay, the beta community of game Elite Dangerous has exploded with controversy after developers announced that the game's offline single player is being scrapped in favor of online only. Those who have only ever accessed the game offline are being offered a refund if requested, but anyone who took part in the online game during alpha or beta will be denied. The forums appear to be filled with people on both sides who say that the developers are greedy, soulless dollar whores for not offering the refund to everyone, and that they are being thrown to the wolves, especially those that donated way over the mark. Others are asking what the problem is. People who are clearly playing the game online have no reason to complain about a feature being pulled that they aren't using anyways. The developer has stated that this decision was to put more work into the online features rather than put more development into the offline single player in order to make it feel less like a dead universe. The bigger question I have is, after a company has a successful Kickstarter campaign, as Elite Dangerous did, what happens if they pull a feature promised in the original campaign? As well, what other opinions do you have on the Kickstarter funding process as a whole?
If you offer something and you raise the monies and the funds for it, it's just like the Hair Massacre. If you're raising money for something, then you need to follow through with what you're saying you're raising the money for. You need to follow through with what's promised. You took my money to do something, then you give me what I paid my money for. That is not okay. If you promised offline features, then you provide offline features.
I have to agree with Burgundy on that. If this is something that you are basing as part of your Kickstarter, your crowdfunding, and your crowdfunding was successful, uh, then I think you are obligated to provide those said features.
Well, in the case of Elite Dangerous, I skimmed through their Kickstarter. I couldn't find anything that specifically stated that there was going to be an online mode, but I'm pretty sure it was insinuated to a great extent, at least in their videos. And that's just it. Now, at the same time, is it reasonable to expect the company to maintain the single player feature knowing full well that is basically a black hole of money that is going to negatively impact the game as a whole and probably impact the majority of people who donated?
When you create offline gaming, though, you have to create it once. When you create online gaming, it's something you have to continue to maintain and upgrade and add to. So once they have the base game done for offline, there's nothing more they're going to have to do to that. So what are they whining about?
Well, the thing is that if you have the single player mode, you have to populate that single player with NPCs that you don't actually have to populate into the multiplayer. So it's literally putting more time and effort into assets and other things to keep people interested in the single player that you wouldn't actually have to in a multiplayer environment. Look at Star Citizen. Star Citizen will have to have NPC content to get the things going, but they don't have to maintain it because eventually the player base will actually take over where the NPCs have started. So the players create the content versus needing NPCs to create your content. So in a single player game, NPCs are what create your content. You're not going to get that in the multiplayer. Multiplayer is this player driven content, which is what Elite Dangerous is designed around.
Right, but at
Too
the same,
bad.
yeah, at the same time, yeah. I mean, if they raise that that expectation in the Kickstarter that this was a feature that was in the game, uh, then they have the money. Technically, they should have the money to finish what they've committed to. It almost sounds like they've maybe underestimated what the actual costs would be, and that's where they're backpedaling from, and maybe they're not being completely honest about that.
Yeah, they should have done more research and they should have had a better plan.
All right,
Well, the
well
main
let's.
thing I have a problem with this. What they're doing is the offering of a refund to only some players. They should either offer a refund to everybody or offer a refund to nobody. There shouldn't be some in-between BS.
And that was
Yeah.
one of the big issues that people brought up. And that I actually do have to agree with. If you're going to offer a refund. Because, yeah, don't just offer a refund to those who... And that's just it. If they specifically state in their project on Kickstarter that we will have offline mode, if it was explicitly stated, not just something that they decided to try to do after the Kickstarter had ended, then, yeah, refunds for all who want it. I think they'll be surprised with how few people actually take it. But if it's something that they decided to add after the Kickstarter campaign, something that they didn't actually vocalize that they're intending on doing at all, not even really inferred, then no, screw you guys. This is game development at this point. We didn't promise you offline, so you don't get offline, and that's where I agree with you. But at the same time, look at the opposite note. You have other Kickstarter campaigns that have been extraordinarily successful, and now the game is going in a direction that was not really expected, in the sense of a very potential cash grab in a game. And yeah, I'm referring to Star Citizen. And this is obviously, there's no proof of this at the moment, but it is something that people are being careful of possibly existing on the horizon, of the potentiality for Star Citizen to actually become a cash grab, and that the company could actually go in that direction and seem to actually be making decisions that almost hint that they might go that route.
Oh yeah, the game's. I mean, just with the way they're selling ships, and if they continue in the future, as people are suspecting when they get into the first FPS mode, and some people are questioning why are you going straight into FPS mode? You should be giving us the next part of the arena commander. You should be letting us fly more ships. Ships we've owned. We should see some more ships. Stop making new ships and start actually making the ships that we've already bought and put them in our hangar so we can actually watch. And I mean, I bought a Caterpillar. I bought a Caterpillar almost a year ago, and it's still not in my hangar to even look at. But yet, they've brought out a number of other ships and designs and stuff like that, and they're selling them. And the big concern now is with the FPS mode that they're going to start selling, weapons for your first person character, and charging for that. And again, and some people I've heard are kind of saying, you know what, that's you know, uh, you guys have raised enough money. I think that you need to stop raising more money and actually start making the game, because there's the evidence of the game being made seems to be slowing down, whereas the asking for more money through sales seems to be maintaining a consistent pace.
Well, a quick question. Is your caterpillar yellow, black, and fuzzy? Because if it is, you might want to be careful.
I know I'd be allergic to it, wouldn't I?
Yep. But yeah, no, I totally agree with you. Like, and this brings up another type of crowdfunding with the Descendant Studios, which is now essentially the Eric Pearson offshoot of Star Citizen, of RAS, I believe is what they're called. Yeah, I think it's RAS is Star Citizen. RAS is Star Citizen, right?
CIG is
CIG, sorry. So yeah,
Cloud Imperium Games.
Yeah, so Eric Pearson left Cloud Imperium Games and started his own studio, Descendant Studios. And they're obviously going to be doing crowdfunding. I don't know if they're going to be doing Kickstarter or whatever, but what is the responsibility of video games and crowdfunding? Because the amount of games that are actually being funded through things like Kickstarter is actually drastically going down. Yeah, Star Citizen is in the... Well, broke the record. Fuck Guinness. I don't care if it's in Guinness Book of World Records. That thing is useless these days. But it broke records for crowdfunding for a game on Kickstarter. But the amount of games, like the number of games that are actually successfully being crowdfunding, is actually going way, way down. So, what is the success rate now? You have companies like Steam doing Steam Greenlight that are basically seem to have an arbitrary system for getting their games on there. You do have companies like a Canadian company based out of Montreal recently that what they do is they will give up to $50,000 to an indie company to start their video game project, and they also give money to help indie companies finish projects. So, with all these different sources of crowdfunding, where's the responsibility come in for the actual people doing the job? Like, are we going to be seeing more companies that just are ill prepared for the money they're receiving? What is the type of, I guess, not social, but no, I think even at this point you call it social responsibility of these crowdfunded video game companies to actually not only produce the product promised, but produce a product of quality when they themselves may not actually know what kind of money they're going to need to make the project they need.
But really,
Well,
Gina,
oh,
go
sorry,
ahead.
go ahead, Bergen.
When if you don't talk, I'm going to take over again.
Ladies first.
Oh, I'm good. I don't have a point to make. You go ahead, Beck.
Well, I was just going to say, I think when it comes to crowdfunding, there is definitely a right way and a wrong way to do it. Mentioning Descendant Studios, people are begging to throw money at this thing already. Sight unseen, very little details. They want to support this project just on the merits of the people that are associated with it. And I think to the credit of Eric Peterson and his crew, they're saying, you know what, guys, as much as we would love to take your money, we're just not prepared to do anything like that yet. We're still getting ourselves set up. We're still working out some stuff. We'll see if we can come up with something for you guys to kind of subscribe to. So you're getting some actual value. But for right now, we just don't have anything, and we're not willing to just throw up a button and start taking your money. And I think to their credit. Um, that's something that inspires me to have more confidence in their product, because it's not about the money, with them, at least, it doesn't appear to be about the money at this time. And I can't say the same